Since Lin-Manuel Miranda created the hit musical Hamilton, history has had its eyes on both him and the young, scrappy and hungry founding father at the centre of its story. But just how much of what you see on screen is Broadway fiction versus historical fact? Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers, I'm Jan, and in this video I'm revealing 7 intriguing differences between Miranda's popular show and the true story of Alexander Hamilton, and I'll be explaining why these changes were made. In the musical, Hamilton and Burr first meet in 1776. The tune where it happens is Aaron Burr, Sir, and it kicks off with Hamilton wanting the lowdown from fellow orphan Burr on how he graduated college so quickly, and it continues with the pair heading to a tavern where Hamilton first meets John Laurens, Lafayette and Hercules Mulligan.
What are the odds the gods would put us all in one spot?
However, this entire encounter is made up. Back in the real world, Hamilton had already started college in 1773 or 74, and had likely finished his studies by 1776. He also already knew Mulligan before the date in the song, as he boarded with him shortly after arriving in New York. And he didn't meet Laurens or Lafayette until later in the decade. But the show's fictional first meeting between these men, as well as its condensed timeline, serve many vital purposes. It allows Lin-Manuel Miranda to quickly introduce us to some of the musical's main characters and show us how they relate to its star. The scene also clearly sets up the differences between Hamilton and Burr, a crucial part of the show, and Miranda's decision for Hamilton's real friends Laurens, Lafayette and Mulligan to rap in a more simple old-school style.
I'm John Laurens in the place to be.
Sets the stage to reveal Hamilton's incredible intellect and sophisticated way with words that showcased in the densely packed rhymes of the musical's very next number, My Shot.
Every disadvantage I've learned to manage. I don't have a gun to brandish. I walk these streets famished.
Miranda makes what he calls another historical leap in that song when Hamilton says he punched a college bursar. Apparently the show's historical consultant Ron Chernow, whose biography of Hamilton inspired Miranda to create the musical, blanched a bit when he heard the line, as Hamilton wasn't needlessly violent. However, Miranda just couldn't say no to this fictionalized fight appearing in the final show, as in his words, the rhyme was too good to pass up.
It's a blur, sir. He handles the financials.
You punched the bursar?
Yes.
Much is made in the musical of the mutual attraction between Angelica Schuyler and Hamilton.
I'll never forget the first time I saw your face.
In reality, historians disagree just how intimate their relationship was. While some believe the pair was satisfied with a close friendship and exchanging letters through the years, others suggest they were actually lovers. Still, when it comes to his musical, Miranda ignores a few facts historians are certain about. When Angelica meets Hamilton in the show, we're told she has no brothers and that she's also single, so she has to marry someone rich.
My father has no son, so I'm the one who has to social climb for one.
Plus, she's the one who introduces her sister Eliza to Hamilton. However, a quick look at the history books proves none of that was true. In fact, the eldest Schuyler sister wasn't present when Eliza met her future spouse. And not only had Angelica been married a number of years by the time she did meet Hamilton, the musical instead shifts Angelica's marriage forward in time to the very end of Act 1.
I have found a wealthy husband who will keep me in comfort for all my days.
As for siblings, records show that Angelica definitely had several brothers. According to Miranda, his brain wanted him to forget all that while writing, because it's stronger dramatically if she can't marry the penniless Hamilton because of social pressures rather than the fact that she's already wed. Also, Miranda was trying to make a larger point here, that Angelica is a world-class intellect in a world that does not allow her to flex it.
Eliza, I'm looking for a mind and a work.
After Hamilton very publicly reveals his extramarital affair in the Reynolds pamphlet, the musical shows his wife Eliza's reaction in the song Burn, where she sets fire to the letters he wrote her. In real life, Eliza never commented publicly on the affair, and historians don't know for sure when, why, or how she destroyed her letters.
Let future historians wonder how Eliza reacted.
Indeed, it even seems to be something of an assumption to say that she did actually dispose of them herself, rather than say someone else having done it, or them simply having gone missing over the years. But for Miranda, the fact Eliza's response is lost in time not only gave him enormous freedom to imagine her actions and outpouring of emotion in Burn, but it also added another layer of drama and humanity to the overall story.
Burning the letters that might have redeemed you.
A change of protagonist in the song 10 Dual Commandments has an important effect on the musical as a whole. The song features a face-off between soldier and statesman John Laurens and fellow military man Charles Lee, who was charged with insulting George Washington. Now, while these two men did indeed engage in combat in 1778, the show departs from reality by having Aaron Burr act as Lee's second, when in real life Lee's second was actually Major Evan Edwards. So why did Miranda make this change? Well, Burr's presence in this scene sets up the show's climactic combat between him and Hamilton, creating a parallel between these two moments. This adds an irony to his and Hamilton's final fate, because in this first act song, Burr tells Hamilton,
Can we agree that duels are dumb and immature?
and that it's absurd that a man should have to answer for his words against another with his life. Yet in the second act song, Your Obedient Servant, the tables have turned, and now Burr is demanding Hamilton pay for the disrespect he's shown him, just as Laurens demanded of Lee in Act 1. Also, by adding Burr and deleting Edwards from the action, Miranda re-emphasises the continual importance of Burr throughout Hamilton's life, while also avoiding having to introduce us to a new minor character.
Alexander. Aaron Burr, sir.
A set of rules for one-on-one combat known as the Code Duello did exist at the time the show set, and Miranda drew heavily on historian Joanne Freeman's book on the subject while writing. However, he does take an interesting little creative liberty in this song,
It's the 10 dual commandments.
as in reality there were actually over 20 rules for dueling. The song cuts down the real number of rules as it was directly inspired by the track 10 Crack Commandments by rapper Biggie Smalls, whose influence runs throughout the musical, and along with Miranda's many other musical inspirations, bridges the gap between the Revolutionary era and modern day for 21st century audiences. Oh, and of course presenting just 10 rather than 20 plus rules also helps keep the show moving and the audience interested. By the way, the song itself came about because Miranda wanted, in the first act, to introduce the audience to how dueling worked, so that when it was time for Hamilton and Burr's famous confrontation in the second act, he didn't have to interrupt or slow down the action with explanations. Ron Chernow's biography describes Hamilton as a committed abolitionist, and Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical takes a very similar view of its protagonist.
A bunch of revolutionary manumission abolitionists. Give me a position, show me where the ammunition is.
In fact, right from the opening number, Miranda portrays Hamilton's early life as being marked by trauma and a first-hand view of the brutal practices of the slave trade.
Every day while slaves were being slaughtered and carted away across the waves, he struggled and kept his guard up.
Then later he has him engage in a rap battle with Thomas Jefferson, where Hamilton derides the hypocrisy of the future president for owning slaves. And Miranda himself says it was cathartic to get to express this to Jefferson every night.
Hey neighbor, your debts are paid because you don't pay for labor.
Finally, at the end of the show, Eliza sings that Hamilton would have done more for slaves had he lived longer.
You could have done so much more if you only had time.
However, the show's progressive depiction of Hamilton on this issue airbrushes out the more complicated and problematic reality. While the real Hamilton was part of the New York Manumission Society, and according to historian Annette Gordon-Reed, did publicly criticise Jefferson's racist belief that black people were inferior, Hamilton's record from the 1790s until his death in 1804 includes little to no action against slavery. In other words, as Gordon-Reed says, opposing slavery was never at the forefront of his agenda, and many historians and political theorists agree. Others, though, maintain Hamilton was an abolitionist by the standard of the founding period, pointing as proof to his contrasting views on the subject with Jefferson. But what role did slaves play in Hamilton's own life? Well, not only did the real-life Hamilton buy and sell slaves for his in-laws, but some sources indicate he may have bought them for himself as well, or at least hired them. Indeed, Hamilton's own mother had slaves and bequeathed them to her sons upon her death. However, due to her children's illegitimacy, they didn't actually inherit them. For historian Phil Magnus, it's probably accurate to see Hamilton as a slave beneficiary who had qualms with the institution. However, to call him an abolitionist, let alone the leading abolitionist of his generation, is an historical absurdity. When it comes to Miranda's musical, despite the fact so many of the founding fathers were slave owners, only Jefferson is explicitly depicted as such. Still, actor Christopher Jackson, who plays George Washington, found his own way of giving a subtle nod to the first president's slave ownership in the show, and I talk about that in my video on all the things you missed in the movie. So why does Miranda portray Hamilton this way? Well, a big factor must be Chernow's biography, which highlights Hamilton's progressiveness on this subject and heavily inspired Miranda's musical. And Chernow is actually the show's historical consultant as well. Then there's the fact that Miranda sees Hamilton as an inspirational and aspirational figure to him, as well as someone who reminds him of his own father, which, as historian Lyra Monteiro suggests, would also likely make it more difficult for him to truly incorporate slavery into the story of Hamilton's life. Another likely reason the show glosses over the contradictions in Hamilton's anti-slavery stance is that, as Gordon Reed says, it makes him more palatable and attractive to modern audiences. As Chernow has pointed out, history is long, messy and complicated, and a Broadway show is short, coherent and tightly constructed. And Miranda does manage to squeeze an incredible amount of information into the musical, and even includes direct quotes from Hamilton and some of the other characters' own writings. But what does Miranda himself have to say on this? Speaking recently to NPR, he noted that other than calling out Jefferson on his hypocrisy with regards to slavery, Hamilton doesn't really say much else over the course of Act 2. And I think that's actually pretty honest, as he didn't really do much about it after that. Although he voiced anti-slavery beliefs, he remained complicit in the system. While some scholars point out the ironic tension between the musical's diverse cast and what they see as an overly whitewashed script, as Kate Keller notes in the Smithsonian magazine, over the years the show's creators have highlighted the idea that Hamilton is a story about America then, told by America now. And back in the show's early days of 2015, cast members including Leslie Odom Jr. and Daveed Diggs spoke about it giving them a sense of ownership over American history, because they felt it's their history too for the first time ever. During a much more recent interview, writer Tonja Renee Stidham spoke with the cast about the timeliness of the film's release, as she put it, allowing us an opportunity to revisit and reckon with the history of this nation's founding fathers during a national uprising. And Christopher Jackson added that it doesn't touch on everything, it's not meant to solve problems, it's meant to inspire thought, inspire change through action, but you cannot do that until you fill in all the different gaps of your understanding about where we are, how we got here, and what we're supposed to do now. And in response to recent criticism of the show's take on Hamilton, race and slavery, Miranda tweeted that all the criticisms are valid, and that he struggled to include all the complexities of the characters in a 2.5-hour musical. So what do you think of the Hamilton musical and how it changed history? And were there any historical inaccuracies which bothered you? Let me know in the comments below. Tap left to watch my next Hamilton video, or tap right for another video you're sure to like. And if you enjoyed this, I really appreciate a thumbs up and a share. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers!